All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the All Portable Discussion Zone, the bi-weekly discussion about all things portable. My name is Charlie, November Juliet 7 Victor, and my co-host today, as usual, Brian, W7JET, and Dan, KC7MSU, are with us. And of course, we have all the regular characters in the chat room: Christian and the Smoking Ape and the Dons, and so welcome to you guys as well. We have a good show, I think, planned for us today, and so I think we'll just jump right into it. I was on vacation for a week, but we have a lot that's happened over the last 2 weeks, and so we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that's been going on in our over the last 2 weeks. I went to Georgia, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll start with Dan. Dan has some things that he's going to discuss with us, and then we'll ask him some questions and just move right in, just to kind of take turns. So go ahead, Dan.
Great. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I was real fortunate last week to go on a getaway up to Alpine, Arizona. We're out celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary. So we spent 5 or 6 days up there, and my bride was kind enough to allow me out of the cabin and away from doing things with her for a little bit. So I went and did. I was originally planning on doing 2 mountains. So I did Timber Top and South Mountain. And then I got back and discovered that I was stuck on 897 points, activator points, and that just didn't sit well with me. So I had to finally get it over 900 points. So I got to go out on Monday morning, and I did Noble Mountain, which was a fantastic mountain to do up there in Alpine.
Cool. So what are you at now then, Dan?
I'm at 907 points now.
907 activator points. Hey, we're going to be throwing a party for you soon, aren't we?
I hope so, yeah. So I had to get over that 900 point hump, though.
Yeah. All right. What have you been up to, Brian, the last couple of weeks?
Well, let's see. I was out at work. So while I was out at work, I sat in Napa for a few days with a broken airplane, and happened to find out that there was a state park not too far from there. So I figured, well, I got my radio with me, so I dipped my toe in a solo, non-associated with soda, POTA activation. Was a little impromptu thing late in the day, so I have some comments about how that went. Was a little tough. And then did 4 activations in the last week for summits on the air, worked some DX. I think the bands are improving. Had a lot of fun with the Arizona QSO party this weekend with Dan. Charlie was too good for us, couldn't come and play, had to do his own thing. So we did okay without him, though. We managed to limp it in. I managed to work some CW all by myself without screwing it up too bad. And got some stuff going on. Working on actually, my backyard is being graded right now by my neighbor. I'm fortunate that I have a neighbor that's a general contractor with a front end loader and an excavator. So he's filling in a low spot in my property that's eventually going to be the area where I throw in a new 58-foot fold over tower. So pretty pumped about that.
Nice.
So yeah, no, things are going good. Excited about some stuff. I said I've also been co-spotting with POTA, or alerting, I should say, with POTA from my soda activations that fall in POTA areas, and that's really pushed up my my QSO counts. In fact, I got 2 logs here. Well, let me grab them. 2 full log pages here. They were kind of hard to read in the paper from the last activation I did. They're well over, between 2 mountains, well over 50 contacts. So that was kind of exciting as well.
Wow. So you think that then? Yeah, I kind of learned about that recently too, where a national forest is considered a national park, and so I've never really added my alerts to POTA, but you're saying you think that you've got a lot more contacts, so that's kind of generating more contacts for you?
Absolutely. Well, we all 3 of us know the regulars. The call signs pop up as soon as you hear it. In fact, for especially for the CW guys, even some of as soon as you hear the style of sending, the call sign before it even comes out. And there were a few in there that I'm like, no, I'm not familiar with that one. But I was looking through the log, they showed up on both activations. So either the new soda people or the new POTA people. But The only thing that's different between the last time I activated and these last 4 this week was that I co-alerted on the POTA page for them. So I'm going to go with their POTA people that jumped on board.
Did anybody ask for your location one versus the other? Like, for example, did they get confused about which designator to offer?
No, I didn't get either or. Or questions about the POTA number, and I'm assuming they just looked on the activation page and like everybody else that works me knows I'm a pretty mediocre CW operator, so asking more than a signal report's probably going to result in a bunch of gibberish where you're going, I have no idea what he just said. I think he wants to invade Cuba.
You have anything to add, Dan?
Yeah, so Brian, I understand also you got some DX while you were out as well, right?
Yeah, I did. In fact, I think we both worked the same guy. So I got to go to this log page. This log page filled up so much that I don't want to rip out another piece of paper. So I actually started writing along the side there. That's how full it got. That's 28 lines. So I went past 28. And one of them was, let's see here. Where was he? I got a French guy, which was Fox 4 Whiskey Bravo November, and
That's
Belgium. Oh, Oscar November 4 Victor Tango were the 2 DX I worked on that mount.
He's a regular.
And then I said a few weeks ago I worked the ZL3, which I can't remember his call sign, but BY something or other.
BYZ.
ZL something.
BYZ.
Yeah, I've worked him a couple of times. In fact, the last time I worked him before the solo activation was with Dan on what the heck is that? The Fire Tower Summit over by Hutch. We worked it on Hutch, not this field day, but the last field day. So 2 years ago, field day.
Cool. Yeah, I got. Let me tell you a little bit about my Georgia trip then, I guess. Unless you want to take something, talk about something, Dan, or do you want to let me go with the Georgia thing?
Go ahead, go with Georgia.
All right. So I spent the week in Georgia, spending time with the family, my stepson and his wife and their 5 kids, and had a lot of fun doing a lot of family stuff. Went on a few hikes in Georgia. I love the area; they're so beautiful. But one of the things we flew out there, and I know I did a video before about traveling with your ham radio, and this time I didn't have quite as much gear with me. I decided to go with the MTR3B and go real light, and Adam got the names there. ON4VT is Danny, and KZL1BYC. Yep, they're regulars.
Yep.
So anyway, I went through the airport, and when I went through Phoenix here, they didn't even have us take anything out of the bags. I had a big laptop and all kinds of gear, and when we went through security on the way to Georgia, they didn't even ask us to take anything out of the bags. They were just shuffling people through. So that was kind of interesting. Wow. Usually doesn't happen that way, right? Usually you have to pull things out of the bags and
turn it on,
separate it and stuff like that. I've never had to turn any of my gear on. Have you had to?
Yeah, I have. I've traveled with HTs primarily, and I've almost always had to turn those on.
Really?
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised because most people that I've heard of, they say, hey, I'm a ham operator, and they kind of like, hey, we know what the deal is there, and they just kind of shuffle you through.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
So the only time I really had any kind of weirdness with regards to my gear was in the why can't I think of the name of it now? In Scotland. Why can't I think of the name of the airport? It's up where Loch Ness. It'll come to me in a second. But anyway, that's the only time I've really had any trouble with security. And it was a very typical, like the stereotypical Scottish type stuff with the accents and the attitude and the very the bluntness. So there was a female working the counter, and my bag went through, and she looked at it and very thick Scottish accent informed me that I needed to take the stuff out. And they went through it all. And as I got slid down to the next guy looks at me and goes, let me guess, it was and he used some slang word for woman, which I can't remember, but it was very Scottish. And I looked at it, and Eve was standing next to me, and she smiled, and I smiled, and he goes, yeah, it figures. She thinks she's the last line of defense. And that was... and he goes, you can just go put all that stuff back in your bags. And that's the only time I've ever been hassled with gear.
Yeah.
And that was in, why can't I think of the name of the town now? And it's been a long weekend. Inverness. That's it. It was Inverness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the only time I've ever been hassled. I mean, I fly with my gear all the time. So there's always an HF radio in my suitcase. And as you guys know, I probably do about 30 to 40 airline flights a year.
Yeah.
For my job.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
And sometimes I do have the special security badge, so I don't always have to go through the same security that everybody else does. But there's a lot of times that, especially when I'm coming home from work and I got a first class ticket, I don't want anybody to know what I do for a living. So I'm not in uniform. I'm usually in shorts, t-shirt, flip-flops. I look like I'm going on vacation, so that way I can drink up all that free expired beer up in first class while I'm riding home. And even then, I've never really been hassled. Now I do have the next tier down, which is the known traveler thing, and that, I don't have to go through the X-ray machine. I just go through the magnetometer. So I haven't had too many problems with it. Every now and then, like I had them one time because of the dipole, it's a big mass of wire in there. And when they look at that, sometimes they look at that and they're like, what's the big wad of wire in there? I'm like, it's wire antenna. Oh, okay. Sometimes I don't even want to look at it. They just ask. But I've never really had any major hassles with radio gear. And I said I've been traveling consistently with radio gear for the last 5 years now, and
I think that's
Inverness is really the only time we're having any trouble.
That's about, I think, par for the course. Dan, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, it does happen on occasion, I know, but it's never. I've been through the airport with my radio gear probably 10, 15 times. Nothing like Brian, but I have never even been asked anything. I've never even been stopped. Every time I send it through, it just goes through, and I gather it up and away I go. That's kind of interesting. So.
Yeah, I think the only places I've ever really had a problem with that is flying in and out of like New York or Newark, places like that. Any place else I've never really been asked, but it was almost guaranteed that I'd be asked to turn things on when I went through those two airports. So.
Well, you do look kind of shifty, Dan. I mean, I'd probably give you a second look as well. Hold on, sir. I need you to come over. You got to come over here in this private room. We got some special jumping jacks you need to do.
Yeah, it's the Tom
even
Selleck
without
mustache.
radio gear.
All right, so let me just say, I'm going to come back around to the Georgia trip a little bit later, but let me just finish up by saying, because we already were talking about who we worked, and I did a joint activation while I was there in Georgia. After I got through the airport, it was a normal flight. They still have a seat between you, and it was it's Southwest is who I flew with, so they don't really have you line up. They just say if you are A1 through 10, board, and then everybody else sit down, and then if you're A11 through 20, board, and that's just kind of how they went. So, but I did an activation. I was able to work 3 DX. Now it's a little different because I was on the East Coast, right? So it's a little easier for me. But when I did this joint activation, which I'll talk about a little bit later, I was able to work Spain, EA7GV, who I've worked before, and a guy in Sweden, SM4CJM, and then Germany, DL6MST. So I was quite surprised I was able to work 3 DX. Like you said, I think the band conditions are improving or something. So had a good time out there. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that activation later on, but let's go back to Dan with whatever he has.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed. Because I had gotten Christian F4 WBN on Noble Mountain, and it's kind of funny because I know now Brian worked him, and then Eric also worked him. He's been out west here, so he worked him as well. So band conditions must be improving.
Well, the difference here is you're a sideband, right?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I heard that call sign come in, and I was like, "What in the world is that?" And he was really strong. I mean, he was a 5.5 coming in, no problem whatsoever. And I've gotten some Canadians here and there, but it's the first time I'd ever gotten anybody from Europe.
Wow.
So much so that when I got home, I sent him an email and said, "Hey, is this really you? And you're in France?" I was like, "I just got to double check this." And he said, "Yeah, that was definitely me." And so I was pretty surprised on single sideband.
Cool. All right. Anything else on that before we move on to, I guess, the Arizona QSO party or the 10-Point Madness or one of those things?
That's about it as far as activations. So we want to talk about 10-Point Madness. That's always a fun event.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't able to participate this year. Unfortunately, I was up in the air on the way to Georgia. I was really disappointed, but man, it looks like it was a banner year for us. Let's Dan, how did you do?
I did not get to participate. Matter of fact, I didn't even have the radio on. We left on Saturday morning, the day of the event, to head to Alpine, and I didn't even turn the radio on,
Wow.
and which was really making me squirm. And my wife was very appreciative, but I was squirming the entire drive up to Alpine.
Yeah, you knew people were making contacts. Okay, Brian, take it
Yeah.
away. Tell us what happened.
I'll tell you what happened. I, the day before, was attempting my POTA activation in Napa, and then that was in the evening. And that morning, I was sitting in a hotel room in Napa, trying not to inhale the copious amounts of forest fire smoke from the very large fires burning near Napa. And I was looking at it on the spotting page going, man, I wish I was on top of a mountain right now. And I actually thought about trying to get up on top of one in the Napa area so I could at least participate. But with the smoke being so heavy, there was nothing that was really a drive up in the area. Most of it were fairly long walks, and I did not want to walk 2 miles in less than a mile visibility and heavy smoke. So I did not participate as well because I was working. So all three of us missed the largest soda event in Arizona for the year. So way to go, portable ops discussion group.
Oh man, that sucks.
We really banged that one out, didn't we?
We did.
Oh yeah. We actually we were the crack reporters on that one. We completely missed the scoop on that. We're rock solid, guys. So
Yeah.
you definitely
We were
want
Johnny on the
right
spot
now.
there, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, luckily Pete gave us some little report, so I'll pull that up here. Roger Rugg says that the French station was booming in for him as well, so that's cool this weekend.
Oh,
So-
that's great.
Yeah, let me pull this over and see if I can get this up. So, for those of you watching right now, this is kind of a spreadsheet that the organizer of the event created for us. So let me just show you a couple things here. So you'll see these are all the call signs of all the individuals who participated here on the left, and you'll see, for example, I think let's go with the total QSO. No, see, the total QSOs right here. Some people had quite a few, 109 right here and 116. KR7RK, he always does well. He had 60 summit QSOs. I think some of those were multiple bands. So we had 18 different Arizona summits and 6 10-pointers so a total of 24 10-point peaks, and so his total was 388 points on that one.
Didn't he also swap mountains too in the middle
He
of the
looks
thing?
like he has 3 different mountains here, right? So
Oh wow,
he
3.
went to 3 different mountains on this activation. So good for him. I think he was the top performer. With Pete, he usually does really good too, right behind him with he actually had 356 points. So actually looks like right around the same. But I just wanted to kind of show people watching, just kind of look at, we had some 1296 contacts over here on the far right, and then some 440, 220, 2 meters, 6 meters. We had even a 6 meter. It looks like we had every band except for 12 meters. We had a contact. Well, it looks like maybe 80. So 0 on 12 and 0 on 80. Every other band was represented. And now, let me just scroll down here to the bottom. So we had 27 participants, 1,059 total contacts for a summit-to-summit score of 3,665.
Wow.
So that's significant. That's the best we've done as far as activations, as far as points go, and as far as participants. I think we at least matched what we had last year and the year before. That doesn't even count all the participants that participated, like from California and other places. I know, for example, KR7RK. He said he got about between 20 and 30 contacts, and WU7H is always there. I think he got about the same up in Washington. So we really had I think if you all told, we probably had about 40 people participating in this event. So it was amazing. It was good. I like you guys say, it's my favorite event, and I really am disappointed I missed it. So I'm going to catch it for sure next year. So.
Yeah, definitely. I'm
Yeah.
the same way. And my understanding is that out of state participation was just through the roof, which is great. It's a lot of fun to chase other summits, and it's really interesting if you're up on a summit and you're chasing, especially if you're on 2 meter FM. Man, it is really busy, hot and heavy, and sometimes it's hard to get a QSO in real quick.
It is. I was on my joint activation. I did my joint activation with Pat and with Andy. Andy's call sign is what is his? Gosh, their call signs escape me now. But Pat and Andy, they both participate. And for LAG is Andy's, and Pat's is I think KI4. I'll get it in a minute. But anyway, they both participated from way out east, and they both had about 25, 30 contacts and a bunch of summits, and both really loved it too. So it's really becoming kind of a United States thing rather than just an Arizona thing. So pretty cool. And then Christian Claiborne, W1 CLC, he N1 CLC, sorry, N1 CLC, Chris, he was talking to me on my last joint activation with him, and he got all ready and stuff like that, but didn't do as well as he thought he'd do. So he's gonna try better for next time. Don Izzo's in the house. Hey, Don. All right, so let's see what else we got here. Dan, what else did you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, especially you guys know I've been a single sideband op forever, and I really enjoy that. But in recent years, especially the last two, it's getting tougher and tougher to make single sideband contacts. So I've been kind of fussing around with CW for a while, and I need to definitely spend more time on CW. And I was just curious, it's such an intimidating thing, oh, did I really send that letter, or did I send it right, or am I really hearing that right? And then the getting caught in your first pileup. I was listening to Brian operate over the QSO party, and I could pick out some letters and stuff, which made me pretty happy. But boy, sometimes you got in a bit of a pileup there, and I know that happens on a summit. So it just seems much more intimidating on CW than it is on single sideband. So I was kind of curious how everybody kind of got over that and stopped being gun shy.
Roger says that he's going to drive up to a 10-pointer next year because climbing a 2-pointer is a bit overrated.
No argument there.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Battleship Mountain, the ultimate non-2-pointer.
Oh man, you'll never get to that. Yeah. Cool. What else, Brian?
I was just thinking of, Dan was talking about the CW, and I was thinking about yesterday, and I didn't get to operate nearly as much as I did, and because I had to take care of a few things. So Dan and Jeff kind of had the run of the house and the station while I was gone. When I finally got back to the house in the evening, we had about 45 minutes maybe left in the QSO party when I sat down.
Yeah.
So I fired up on 80 meters, just figuring, we'll see if we can grab a few contacts here and there. And that was not the case. We hammered. It was about 40 some QSOs in a little less than 45 minutes. That was a good time. And I mean, I was not expecting that volume of people coming through on 80 meters at that hour of the night. And, did okay. I think I ran fairly well. There were a few things I probably annoyed a few people, but heck, they wanted to work me. They didn't have to if they didn't want to.
And you had some nice pileups going there for on and off.
Oh yeah, well there were a couple. I mean, there was that one guy that I think it was from Illinois that was trying to pull out of the pile, and that was, or not even out of the pile. He was just a really, really weak signal. I had to finally throw the headset back on because when I was operating by myself, I had the cans on. But when you and Jeff were in the room, because I wanted you, especially you, to hear what was going on, I was running off the speaker, and there were a couple times I had to throw the cans back on because I couldn't pull it out using the speaker on the back of the radio.
Yep.
But yeah, now the main thing with CW, Dan, you just got to decide you're going to do it, and then also to get over the fact that you suck. And I mean, Charlie and I both sucked. We sucked really bad when we first started out,
boy.
And now we suck a little. Now we suck a lot less, but we still don't. We're still not fantastic. At least I definitely am not.
A lot of room for improvement.
And the only way you're going to improve is by doing it. And the funny thing for me, for a while I was moving along at a painfully slow 12 words a minute, because that's about all I was comfortable with for a while. And I was on this summit up in Show Low, and a snow squall blew in, and it had like thunder in it, but it was snowing, and then it was raining, and then it was hailing, and then it was snowing. And I'm on top of this mountain, and I'm trying to get the 4 or 5 contacts in so I can qualify the hill, because I rented a car after I flew up there for work to spend the day up there while my passenger was doing something. I'm like, I got a $60 car. That's worth at least 20 points, and I've only got 10 right now, so I got to get another 10 points to make this thing worthwhile. I was on the 817. I remember hitting the button, cranking it all the way up to 20 words a minute, and firing away at 20 words a minute to try and get through the contacts. And I managed to make it through at 20. And then at that point, I never slowed back down again. I always kept the speed at least, higher, greater than 14 words a minute. And it clicked after that. I'm like, I can do this. If I can run at this speed and fumble through it with some of the hot shots, because we definitely have some really good CW ops that are chasers. And I'm sure they're sitting there going, come on, Brian, it's A. It's A. Like, get it, please. It's A. I don't want to send this one more time. Please get it. And I'm there sitting there going, oh, come on. Like, was that A? Was that Z? Was that N? Why did you just tell me to go screw myself? No. That was something else. Yeah. And it's really just a matter of deciding you're going to do it and understanding that most of the people I think that are working us are super patient, and they know we're getting there, especially when you're a new call sign on CW. They're going to know, I've never seen Dan on CW before. That's cool. He's trying it out. You don't have to worry about it, man. I mean, we're all patient.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about doing is kind of spending time chasing, because I work from home mostly. So string up the dipole and just sit here and listen to CW come in during the day and chase a few here and there and stuff. So at least that way it'll help train my ears a little bit and make me more comfortable. Sending is far easier than picking it up by ear, except for the break. Sure. The break, that drives me crazy. I cannot send that to save my life. So you probably won't see that on a lot of my activations. But I'm hoping on my goat hill that I want to finish out with single sideband, and then on my goat hill, after I do that, probably break out the CW and give it a whirl.
Yeah. Hey, a familiar call sign, K0LAF, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Charlie. He's in the house. He says that he's been using CW for 50 years and he still sucks.
I've actually got a non-soda contact with Charlie. We worked on 6 meter FT8 during some of the good openings in June. So I've got him in the log, non-soda from home, actually.
Yeah, he's really reliable, isn't he?
Yeah, it's amazing. You always come up with this, large group of the same people who actively chase, and without them, it certainly wouldn't be any fun. That's for sure. So I'm really appreciative of all those folks who chase me on single sideband. So, because I know it's not exactly the easiest thing. CW would be far easier, and most of those guys operate CW more than they do single sideband. So I'm glad that they spend the time to chase me when I'm out on the hills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that's why I'm talking about, or we've been discussing amongst us, getting something small that I can throw in the bag for work that has phone in it, just for that reason. Because I as much as I enjoy doing the CW, I need to start getting more phone going for the folks out there that don't do CW, and mainly, for selfish reasons, I don't carry the 817 up the mountain much, just because of the weight and the size, and I've gotten so spoiled by the compactness and the reliability of the UKIT's radio.
Yeah, that UKIT's it's pretty cool.
For what it is, it's worked really well, and it actually worked far better than I ever thought it was going to. Originally, it was just a test drive, and I had seen AKL, I think that's his call sign, the guy from New Mexico, 5AKL, I think it's like
K5AKL, yeah.
K5AKL. He came to one of the soda gatherings at Duke's early on. I'm not sure if you were active yet or not. Were you at that one, Charlie?
No, I wasn't. Let me just interject real quick.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Duke's is a water hole for Arizona soda guys. We have our meetups there at Duke's on a regular basis. Well, somewhat regular. So anyway, go ahead.
So he had come. He was one of the the out of town cameo visits, and he actually brought his gear with him that he uses for activations. His pole, and he has a KX1, and I saw that KX1, and I'm like, holy crap, that thing's tiny, and it weighs nothing. And I'm thinking about the 28-pound pack that I had just hauled up Iron Mountain like 3 days before that, going, I bet that's probably a lot better than that. And I started looking for KX1s. I couldn't find one for a reasonable price because it's a good radio. But I did find the UKITS radio, and that's how I ended up with the UKITS radio. It was more of just we'll see how this thing goes, and if I really like it, maybe I'll invest in a KX1. And frankly, the UKITS radio worked out just fine. It's I've had to do some repairs to it. It's not the most durable thing. I had to replace the volume knob with something a little bit better. And then recently, I did an activation up on Mingus Mountain, and the BNC connector came loose and actually broke off the board. Fortunately, I got a buddy that lives right near Mingus Mountain. I called him up. I'm like, hey, can I swing by your house and use your soldering iron? Dropped by his house, did a repair on it, and then went over and did Spruce Mountain after that, after fixing the radio in his garage.
That's funny. Christian, N1CLC.
How's the front end on both those radios? Because as you guys know, I used to haul up my 857, which was like a tank. And the front end on that thing is just so easy to, overload. How is it like with the MTR3B and the UKITs? Because I know, Charlie, you guys have used the 817 and stuff, which is kind of similar as far as front end.
Well, I mean, first of all, Christian Claiborne, he back on the CW thing real quick. He says he'd never give up on CW because it's great to know that he'll always suck. Yeah. Well, the MTR3B. For me, I don't know if it's nothing scientific about this. It's just my observation. I feel like the MTR3B has a great receiver in it compared to the Yaesu 817. I think it's better, believe it or not. And it has a filter built in. It just seems to be really nice compared to the, I have a filter in the FT 817, which I embarrassingly had in there for 6 years and didn't turn on because I didn't know how and didn't go through the effort of pushing 3 buttons. That's a story for another day, but I think even with the filter in the FT817, I think the MTR3B is better.
The UKITS radio, I haven't had a ton of experience with it around contests, so I will say that when I was in Napa and I did that POTA only activation of Benicia, I think that's how it's pronounced, Benicia State Park, the Portable Ops Challenge was going on, and the Oceana DX contest was going on. So I activated right at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had a hard time finding a good spot and getting it narrowed down enough where I could pick out the people that were calling me. And I just set up on a picnic table in the park, and I was able to make it work. But when I tried the last 3 contacts that I needed to get the 10 to qualify it, I wasn't getting from calling CQ. So I finally started doing some searching and pouncing, and I managed to pick up 3 more with my booming 4 watts. But it was a challenge. So I think the thing has a good receiver because I've been able to work some pretty weak contacts on it, but it's always been on summits with low RF and low interference from other stuff. Now, I will tell you that when Dan and I did our joint activations, what was it, about a month ago now? When you were talking and when you were using your KX3, I had no problem copying Dan 5.9 on any of the bands that I was on. I mean, he was booming in. It wasn't completely intelligible, but it was enough that I could tell it was him. I could tell it was he was giving him a signal report, and I could tell when he was calling CQ. That
URO at 10 watts for me, baby.
Well, you're pushing out 6 more watts than me with a radio that's far better than mine.
Yeah. So let's see. What were you saying? You were saying about the you're going to go do some sideband and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like it depends on what you're doing, right? Because like most of my activations, I like to take the FT817 because I don't mind taking that extra weight. But yeah, if I'm traveling or doing backpacking, definitely the MTR3B is the way to go for me. So yeah, and I this last trip to Georgia, I had let's see, I had a couple people ask about sideband or no, you're not doing sideband, and then Kyle AA0Z AAZZ AZAA0Z Kyle, he was asking about me doing other than 20 meters, and we kind of split up the bands, so I never did 20. And so yeah, there's just kind of all kinds of things that you experience with the joint activation stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So is single sideband more popular on the East Coast for the East Coast guys than it is out here? I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but
I don't think so. I think it's about the same as it is for us, really. I can speak a little bit about the activation I had out there because I have a few things to say about that, and maybe unless you guys
go for it, Charlie.
yeah.
So
Let's
yeah,
it's story time. Let's hear
story
it.
time. Yeah. So I went out there. I was out there from Saturday to Saturday, and I already had planned on a activation with Andy, N4LAG. Now, Andy, you might know him. He actually comes here to Arizona for the winters, and he's been on some of these peaks here and participated in some stuff with us. So anyway, I emailed him probably a month before and said, hey, let's do a joint activation. And he was up for it. So we kind of planned on Wednesday. And then as time came on, we kind of invited Pat to come along too. KI4 SVM is his call sign. And so he joined us. There was two of us. The three of us together did the activation. So so we met at Piggly Wiggly. And and
that was very southern.
Yeah, very southern. We went at Piggly Wiggly in Dillard, and we hiked up Rabun Mountain. And that's, I did 3 hikes while I was there, and they were all about the same. They were all not very steep. There's parts where you could be steep, but it was just kind of average trail. It wasn't like easy, but it wasn't hard. And this one wasn't any different. It was 2 miles to the top. And when we got to the top, there was a fire tower, but these fire towers aren't anything like I've seen in Arizona. This one was a stone structure with a wood decking on it. In fact, let me pull it up. I have a picture of it. It's pretty interesting. Let me see here. If you can see that. That is so right here is Andy, and then this is Pat. We were just kind of fooling around with the FM. So when we got up there, the first thing we did was we shared Pat's radio, and we here it is right here, and the antenna and the radio right here in this corner, and we all got our contacts and we're done basically. It's a great view you can see right there.
Wow.
But Pat said he thinks it's the best view in Georgia, that summit. So he said it was a great one to do, and I mean it was an amazing view. So anyway, then after we all kind of worked FM for a while, then Pat stayed on top, and he worked CW and SSB on 2 meters, and he got contacts on both, so it was pretty cool. And then Andy and I went down below and set up our rigs. And here's me with my MTR3B. There's that. I was just sitting on the ground and hammering it out. I just was on 20 meters. Andy was trying on 30 and 40, and didn't have much luck there. So, but anyway, that was kind of the activation. I got to know Andy pretty good, and he's a great guy. Something about Andy that I thought was amazing is he has been to non-radio related, but he's been to every county in the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii. And it was kind of a goal that he made. So he's visited every county. It was amazing. And so got to know him. He's kind of he's a great guy. He's really fun. And then Pat too. Pat's close to getting his 4th, I think, or more mountain goat. I think it's number 4. Yeah, it's number 4. He said he's going to get his 4th leg. But he said that he's worked outside the country a lot of different places, and he told several stories of some different places. Very interesting. So if you ever have an opportunity to meet either one of those guys, I think you'd enjoy meeting them and playing radio with them. So one of the things that I talked about with them when I was hiking up and down was the tradition of the mountain goat plaque. Do either of you know about what that is? Have you heard of that, Dan? The mountain goat plaque tradition and what you do with the purchase of that?
I think if I heard it right, I believe that whoever the last goat was buys it for the next goat.
Yeah.
Is that just in the United States, or is that everywhere? I'm not sure though.
I think it's everywhere, but it might be just in the United States. I'm not sure. But
I think it's just in the United States.
Is it just the United States? Okay, I'm not surprised. So Yeah, I think so in the United States, but it's there's been a few gaps and a few times where that tradition has been dropped. I think it's a great idea. So if anybody is getting close to their goat and didn't know about that tradition, maybe it's something to consider. It's usually the person, once you receive your goat, you should receive the plaque from the person before you, and then you go ahead and purchase it for the next person. It's just kind of a great way to recognize people. So we talked about that and how, and Pat had some kind of some stories about how that dropped off and got started and stuff. And so it was a good time though. I really liked this activation. And then we went back to the Piggly Wiggly and and we signed off and but anyway, it was a great trip. So good time.
Cool. That sounds like a good time. I've done one summit in Georgia, and that's that Kennesaw Mountain.
Oh yeah, I've done that one.
And that was a good time. I did that one with the UKITS radio and an HT. There was I heard activity on 2 meters. That was mostly people driving on the freeway. It sounded like truckers that were talking to local guys. But one of the things I always find cool about when you do the East Coast summits as opposed to like the West Coast summits, when we're home, is how the bands flip. So
yeah.
Normally, back home, we're working everybody on 40 meters, and then you're working the other guys on 20. And then just like clockwork, you flip it. Everybody that you normally work on 20, you're working on 40, and everybody you normally work on 40, you're working on 20. It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So the thing about this one though is what I noticed was there's, just like in Arizona, there's kind of like a regular crowd of chasers. And Pat, when he set up his 2 meters, I mean, we don't, here in Arizona, in Phoenix anyway, we're on 144.410 FM. And there's like pretty much everywhere in the United States is 146.520. But he got on and familiar person after familiar person was chasing him, and they were all, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, kind of, local guys. It operates just the same there, or it did in my experience, as it does here. And then when you hop on 20 meters, then you get the guys that are further out, usually the regulars. And I think Soda in East Coast is just like Soda in West Coast, except for they probably get more DX, but we get more JAs, right?
Yeah, I worked a UK station when I was on Kennesaw. That was my one European station over there.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let me just let's just go through some recognition here real quick before we move on to whatever else Dan has to say. Let me maybe just copy these over into a little, like a notepad and talk about them, because I think it's important to kind of recognize some of the people that achieve. I will say that I'm not experienced with POTA, and we need to get somebody on the site here that does POTA. And talks to us a little bit about that and help us kind of figure that part out. But so for Soda, since we last met 2 weeks ago, Bob AC1Z, who I think we all know, received his third goat, and that's George. Cool. I was surprised. I mean, I didn't see anything on the Soda reflector for George. KXOR, he received his sixth goat since we last met. Wow. Fred, WS0TA, received his seventh goat. And Pete, he reached 10,000 summit-to-summit contacts. That was with this summit-to-summit thing. And then for the chasers, Gary, K3TCU, 50,000. George, again, KXOR, 50,000. And Mike, we know Mike, W9MRH, 50,000. So I just wanted to mention those achievements and recognize those guys. It's all those things are not easy to achieve, and it takes a long time and a lot of gas money, a lot of trips to fast food, a lot of coercing your wife to let you go, whatever it takes. It's a big achievement and undertaking for all those guys. So I want to congratulate them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are all fantastic achievements. So, matter of fact, I've looked K3TCU. I looked him up, and I've got him in my log probably 20 times. So. Yep. You recognize a lot of those call signs because they chase you every so often. So it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, all right, Dan, what else do you have to talk to us about?
Well, I'm just, looking forward to getting started on the CW journey again. So I want to make sure when I get that goat hill that after I finish that on single sideband, I want to make that my first hill that I operate a little CW from. So I'm hoping to do a little bit of that on like a Zoom meeting kind of thing or something like that to get a little more fluent if possible. So kind of looking for CW buddies to do that with.
Cool.
So hopefully that'll kind of work out a little bit going forward, and then just start spending some time chasing on CW.
Have you heard of the Morris Reno?
I have not.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. It's we're actually going to do a build, Morris Reno build. It's a kit that you pay about $100 for. What's cool about it is it's interfaced with the internet, and so you can do QSOs with people anywhere in the world through kind of internet connection, and so it's kind of a key or a platter that's connected via the internet. So there's a bunch of us guys that are going to do to build one, and then we're going to kind of get it on air and do kind of some QSOs back and forth. It might be an idea, something that's kind of fun. You don't have to be on the air. You can it's just kind of, it's in the internet, and just there's a bunch of people that have purchased those with the Long Island CW Club, and they're all kind of interacting with each other. So it might be something to jump on board with.
Yeah, that sounds like that'd be a fun way to do it. You don't have to worry, like you say, you don't have to worry about getting on the air, and it might make it a little easier to practice, because sometimes you go out on 20 meters or something like that, and all you hear are the 35 word per minute guys, and I can't understand that yet. So
yeah,
but so that makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I know Brian has something else to talk, at least one other thing to talk about. Did you want to talk about your upcoming events, or is there something else besides that first?
I was going to talk about how I broke my pole.
Oh yes, do that. Yes, talk about that.
This is my soda pole. This is a very expensive, highly sought after. No, it's not. It's a $23 fishing pole that I got off of Amazon via our friends in China. That worked out pretty well. It's about, when it's fully extended, it's about 14 feet. But when I was activating Pine Mountain this week, some wind came up and it took it out. So I had to do a repair on it, and now the bottom section only comes out this far, because if I pull it really, really hard, I can get it out, but I had to reinforce it with some tape, and it kind of folded over. So this pole is now about 12 feet now when it's fully extended. Still plenty for what I do, for what I've been doing it with. So I don't think the extra 12 inches at the apex is going to make all that much difference for an inverted V. But I did order a new one. So this one used to have a wood grain color to it. In fact, I used to have it covered in black heat shrink, but Charlie and I did a joint activation a few years ago with Chris, actually, TAB, and I had it covered in black heat shrink, and I dropped it, and we were in the cinder cones, and it disappeared. Couldn't find it. So I realized that having it all black was not a good plan. So I ended up getting some yellow heat shrink and wrapped it in yellow heat shrink. So then it only disappears when I drop it and leaves on the East Coast, but it doesn't disappear here. So that's kind of a home run. I took the time to even write my name on it. So, if somebody finds it and they want to call me, they can actually call me to return it, because I would be kind of bummed. But the nice thing about it is, actual size, it's a little bit wider than my chest. So it fits really diagonally. It fits in my suitcase with everything else, and I have a pole with me all the time to make it easier for doing the activations and making that inverted V. So I was a little bummed when I saw the wind take the way it happened. It just all of a sudden I'm looking at it, and the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, it fell off. It fell out of the wires that I used to tie it to the tree branch, and I looked, like, nope, it's still securely in the tree branch. It just folded over in the middle and it broke. So wow. Yeah, I think this is probably going to become the permanent suitcase pole, and the new one will, which is, I couldn't find the exact same one on Amazon. That they're apparently not selling that $23 gem anymore. So I had to go search the Hamfest that never ends, better known as eBay. Yeah. And I finally found an appropriate one about the same length from China for $18 shipped. So whenever that thing arrives here, and we'll see, because I think Maverick has probably got it in his airplane full of rubber what that he takes out of Hong Kong now that he's retired from the Navy, and he's bringing that here, so it's probably back there with the rubber what. So hopefully I'll get it sometime in the next year. We'll see what happens, and then we'll heat shrink that one up and get it all ready and reinforce it, and we'll be back on the air at full height at the apex.
Cool. All right. Well, let me talk a little bit about a calendar. Actually, let me bring this up so that you guys can see. I'm going to bring up a calendar here. My calendar, actually, but it's not the right one. Just a sec. All right, there it is. All right, that is not what I expected. That is more like it. So, coming up. So right now we're on the 11th. So, this Monday, don't forget, it's Monday Night Ham Radio. If you don't know what that is, every Monday night and every Thursday night Ham Radio, a group of YouTubers get together and create a playlist of their videos, and we play them through usually, 4 hours or so, sometimes more, sometimes less. So that's coming up. Thursday, we here in Arizona have the Soda Barbecue coming up at 4 o'clock. And then the following Sunday, a week from today, I'll be on air with Ham Radio 2.0. I'll be his guest. Looking forward to that. I'm going to talk all about soda on that live stream. So don't forget, don't miss that one. And then October 19th, I'm going to be participating in Monday Night Ham Radio, releasing my video on Mount Baldy with joint activation with Chris and 1CLC. And then we're back to a live stream again, the all portable discussion zone on the 25th. And then further out in the next month, there's a SoCal joint activation, if it's still going to happen. K6ARK and I, and maybe a few others, are going to do a joint activation out in SoCal somewhere. And I know somewhere in here, Brian has something that he's going to talk a little bit about. There's going to be something going on with him as well. So take it away, Brian.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, Charlie. I completely forgot about that. I was so enthralled in everybody else's excitement, I forgot all about my my upcoming obligation. So for those of you that are ARRL members, and if you're not, you should be. The ARRL, despite some of the things that they don't do well, they do a lot of stuff really good, and they really support the hobby, and they need input and funds to keep all that going. So I highly recommend people join. But with that being said, if you are a member, you can participate in the ARRL Learning Network. And if you have something that you're actually that you'd like to teach to people or present, they're always looking for volunteer presenters. I've actually done one presentation already on getting started with Summits on the Air, and it was really just a short little 30-minute with 15-minute Q&A on the activity that we all really grown to enjoy and love, and wanted to spark up some interest with it and talk about that. And they liked it a lot, so they asked me if I had any other material that I could bring along. So I decided to do the next one's going to be on doing your first activation, and what I'm planning on doing is walking everybody through in a 30-minute period. So not super detailed, but enough where you get the idea of what you're supposed to do or how it works for me. And most of us, when we do our activations, selecting the peak, planning for it, packing for it, what to do the night before, what to do the morning of, what to do once you get there, how to get once you get up on top, once you're done, once you get back, and then getting ready for the next one. And I'll be going through that where I'm going to actually, the way I'm planning on doing it is I will have the SOTA web pages up and I'll actually walk through selecting the summit and doing the alerts and all that sort of thing for a summit here in Arizona that we're all familiar with. I'm going to probably use Lone Mountain for that presentation. And I said, and then once it's done, it'll be permanently available on the ARL website for people to view. And from what I'm told, the ARL is also planning on making these presentations available to clubs, to affiliate clubs, that if they want to pull the presentation down and play it at a club meeting, they can. Yeah. So again, ARL Life Learning Network. If you got something that you want to add to the learning library, put together a presentation. There on the page, there's a link to sign up. Send them the information. They're really excited to get input from membership, and they'll bring you right on board. They give you a little. You can select the time, date, or the time that you want to do it at based off of when they're going to publish it, and they give you their full support. Somebody was there to do all the technical stuff for you. All you have to do is talk and click away on the PowerPoint.
Cool. Hey, a couple questions for you, Brian. First of all,
Sure.
when is it that you're doing yours?
So it is. Let me look at the calendar here,
Right.
because I'm sleep deprived and haven't really had a very normal week. So let me get to the calendar here. So it is going to be at the 22nd at
October?
12:30. Yeah, of October at 12:30 p.m. Arizona time, which would make it 3:30 in the afternoon East Coast
Eastern.
time. And it should show up on the ARL Learning Network website or a page within I think Monday or Tuesday is when they'll actually have the official announcement up, and it'll give a brief description of what it is.
Cool. And the other question I just wanted to ask you, so I went to your last live stream on this AARL network, and it seems like they have a lot of content. Can you talk a little bit about how much they have and kind of what the span and scope of it is?
You mean as far as all the different programs that are out there? Or it's they, I'm pretty fortunate that they're bringing me on, because some of the guys that they have on there doing these presentations are, in my opinion, giants in this hobby. Like Ward Silver is doing a presentation on grounding. I can't remember the individual's name, but he does stuff on the Adreno, and he's written a bunch of books. He's an author, and he's doing one this week for it. And there's several others. If you go through all the names, it's just they're good programs. So if you were there for the live portion, you can ask questions afterward, and you're able to give them. And some of the questions are really good. They do a little bit of an impromptu poll in the beginning to see how much people know about the subject. And the ARL, they're interested in growing the program. Like I don't think this is a let's test it out, and if it doesn't work out, we're going to let it fizzle out. I think it's we're lighting the fire, and we're going to keep throwing wood on it till it's on fire and it doesn't go out. I think they've recognized that this is the content that people are going to be interested in moving forward. So they want to bring in the expertise of the vast membership that they have to help grow and create more and more of this content. And I just picked SOTA because, frankly, I like doing it and I know a little bit about it, but I've also learned a lot from talking to other people and a little inside baseball. Part of the think tank for these presentations you're looking at right now. I passed the PowerPoint through Charlie and Dan both for input. Either criticism or for criticism and for areas where I could do better or order a slides or whatever, because these guys have a lot of experience too. And that's the advantage of this program, in my opinion, is there's a lot of people out there with a lot of knowledge that you can share with others. And it's not, there might not be a big SOTA guy in your area, but now you have access to someone who's got a little bit of information on SOTA and might give you some ideas on how to dig that information up or become that guy in the area that's going to be the SOTA guy in that area that people can go to. It's basically 20th century Elmering. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it.
Cool. All right. Well, we've reached the hour or near there. Anyway, it's 4:59 according to my clock. So, last words, Dan, then Brian, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah. Just to kind of echo what Brian had said about the ARRL, it's another learning opportunity, and you might have a lot of knowledge in a particular area, but the little things that I've picked up sometimes mean the most as far as making, for example, a SOTA activity, more fun, worthwhile, and stuff. So it's amazing all the things that people come up with that are different than what you're doing, and kind of gives you a new perspective on it. So I look forward to those kind of things.
Brian?
Well, I was, I've gotten a lot. The doing the POTA thing last week was interesting, and learning about that, because I've now that we're really committed to doing this portable discussion group, I've been trying to learn more about some of the other portable activities, and there's a lot out there. So if you're a portable guy, you can go crazy. You got POTA. I didn't even know what BOTA was, but I just happened to stumble upon it. Do you guys know what BOTA is? No, Dan knows. I think I talked about it yesterday, but I know Charlie doesn't. I didn't know what it was. It's beaches on the air.
Beaches on the air.
Yeah, beaches on the air, and it's a thing. and you can look it up, and they've got a whole website dedicated to it. And I don't have the YouTube up right now, but somebody's probably going, "Oh yeah, I do it all the time." Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but I figured, well, that's another thing. And sometimes I find myself on beaches with work, so if I can go sit out on a lounge chair with the radio and the antenna stuck in the sand, why not, right?
Yeah.
I know. I'm going to take my wife to a beach and put it on the air. I'll score some points there.
See, maybe I need to do patios on the air. I got a picture up right now of Dan staring at a computer on my back patio from the QSO party yesterday.
All right, well, let's wrap it up then. Hey, thanks, Dan. Really, I appreciate you being here, and Brian. I know sometimes it's with everything else going on, Sundays sometimes can be a tough one, and personal lives and stuff like that. So thank you both for being here, and to the chat room, you guys, a bunch of characters. Thank you. Appreciate you guys being here, providing input. I enjoy kind of following what you guys have to say. The sun is coming across my eyes right now, so that means the sun is setting and it's time to close. So we'll catch you next time. Don't forget, in 2 weeks we'll do this again, and we'll have some more topics. And so thanks again, and we're gonna shut her down. Ending stream.